Alright, hey guys, it's me again, and today I'm going to show you a new Intrinsics farm. And this is mainly for the PC crowd, as console doesn't have the Intrinsics nerf yet. Now it's similar to the old farm, but it has a lot of steps and it takes a bit longer. There are two places we can do this farm, either Flexa in the Vale, or Cassio's Rest on Saturn. And in the Vale, you can get about 100 to 200 intrinsics per run, though the 200 intrinsics was from someone else's run, and I personally haven't seen myself get anywhere close to 200. The highest I've gotten with this farm method is 151, but as far as that goes, you can't really go any lower than that unless like Smita never procs, which rarely happens considering the amount of time this takes. And on Saturn, you can expect about 82 intrinsics per run. Unlike the previous intrinsics farm, an affinity booster is required here. Otherwise, you get a lot less intrinsics. So in the Vale, for example, without any boosters, without Narmon, without Smita, no affinity booster, you can expect about 38 intrinsics per run. And if you just add Smita and Narmon, that goes all the way up to 62 intrinsics. Now you're probably wondering what the catch is. And the catch is that this farm takes about 35 minutes to an hour, though it's more consistently around 40 to 45 minutes. So here's how this farm works. So first, what we want to do is get our Railjack to somewhere where it won't be detected. I end up parking my Railjack really high up in the air. Then what we want to do is stealth kill everybody inside the objectives. I prefer the Galleon or the asteroid base last, just to make this farm a little bit easier and saves us a little bit of time. Then what you want to do is attract the fighters to the Galleon. What you want to do is have them kill themselves by colliding into the Galleon. And you want to do this until a cruise ship spawns. Now, in the Vale, this happens at about 9 to 10 fighter kills, and in Saturn, it happens after 15 fighter kills. After a cruise ship spawns, you want to go inside and stealth kill everybody. I'd advise you to kill the officer only when you have a 5x stealth multiplier, as she gives the most XP at around 30,000 or so. Also, you want to save the drone for the very last, as he can break your stealth multiplier very easily. And also don't forget about the gunner on the lower floor. A lot of people tend to forget about him. After you've done all that, drive the cruise ship near the Galleon. And I like to put the cruise ship on top. And since your Railjack is out of detection range, the fighters will see the cruise ship as your Railjack. Basically, we're going to use the cruise ship as bait, so the fighters kamikaze into the Galleon and you don't have to deal with them at all. Alternatively, you can use your own Railjack as bait, and you'll be rewarded with a few more intrinsics from the ram slides and whatnot, but it takes a bit longer and you actually need good avionics, and often you're probably going to have to stop what you're doing and to return to your ship to actually fight the boarders before they actually blow up your ship. Then what we want to do is go from cruise ship to cruise ship, stealth killing everybody, and then we're going to destroy the reactor. And we gotta do that for all the cruise ships except for the very last one before the mission ends. Now this is where the real farm starts. Instead of destroying this cruise ship, the last cruise ship, after stealth killing everybody on board, you're gonna keep it alive, and then we're gonna sit in the pilot seat. Because as soon as we do that,
Rainier cruise ship has translated in sector.
Another cruise ship spawns. And so we're gonna keep spawning cruise ships until we can't spawn them anymore. And when that happens, we blow up the last reactor, and you're done. You can get some extra intrinsics by chasing ram slides from the completed objectives, but that's going to take more time. Compared to the old farm, which I think gave about 120 per hour, this farm's highs are much better, but its lows aren't horrible either. Now, I will warn you that this is kind of a burnout generator, as it's kind of monotonous, and it takes a while. But other than this, the only other method of farming intrinsics is just to run gain point over and over again and try to speed run that as fast as you possibly can. And unlike this method, that method actually requires you have good guns, good avionics, you know, the whole void hole and munitions vortex combo, as well as good armaments. And this method doesn't require that, but it takes a lot longer. So if you do want to use your Railjack as bait instead of like a cruise ship to make it go by a little faster, get a little more intrinsics, this is what I'd recommend you run. Completely ignore my battle avionics because you're not going to be using any of these at all. The only things you need are a Zekti Bulkhead, Zekti Hull Weave now, especially after they nerfed Wing Steel. Definitely want this. You don't really need the speed mods at all, but this helps you get around the map a little faster. But if you're trying to like draw attention with the fighters, I'd recommend you remove one of these, as you're at with this paired with the engines I have. These are actually Godroll Vidar engines. The fighters can't keep up to me and they de-aggro really fast. So if you have good engines, I'd recommend just dropping speed mods altogether. I also have a shield recharge mod to minimize the damage I take to my hull, and I'm also pairing that with a Zekti shield array that has a decent shield regen delay, but you don't really need this. You could just stick with the Sigma and that'd be totally fine. The main things here that are important are these two technical AMX right here: Breach Quanta and Fire Suppression. Breach Quanta, it basically makes it so that if your Railjack ever reaches a catastrophic failure state, you can activate this and you have an extra minute on the timer, basically. That's what this is. The main one I'd recommend you get is Fire Suppression. Fire Suppression is super duper handy, as Fire Suppression not only gets rid of fires, but it actually gets rid of everything except for hull ruptures. Obviously, it doesn't take care of major hull breaches, but Breach Quanta is for that. But fires are really, really annoying and can really mess up your Railjack if there's a lot of them, or if you have electrical problems. Fire Suppression also gets rid of that. Now, I haven't tried this on cold procs, like frozen doors, but you very, very rarely ever get the cold proc on your Railjack anyways, so you don't have to worry about that. Also, on top of getting rid of fires, since repairing fires and electrical hazards and other stuff like that heals your Railjack, Fire Suppression is basically just a flat heal to your Railjack. I will warn you that sometimes this doesn't do anything, but that's kind of a rare bug, so you won't have to worry about it happening too often. Also, if I recall correctly, this requires Revelite to use, but it doesn't actually use the Revelite. It's kind of weird. But yeah, that's really all you need to like use your Railjack sort of as bait. If you like cruise ships aren't spawning in or the fighters are kind of far away, this is what I recommend. Though if you're going to do that, I recommend you take out the objectives first. Otherwise, on Saturn specifically, it's way too easy to get stuck in an infinite ram sled loop, and you're going to run out of resources before they stop coming. And they're not going to stop coming because it's infinite. Anyways, here's my Ivara build. I have perfected this build. So my aura is steel charge, which increases our hammer damage. I also have enemy radar, so I can actually see where the enemies are. Also, if, say, your pet dies, and sometimes if you're jumping from cruise ship to cruise ship, sometimes your cat will stay on the previous cruise ship and they'll just blow up with the cruise ship. But don't worry about that. They'll respawn after you get on another cruise ship. But until that happens, you don't have any enemy radar, so that's what I have this here for. I also have my max efficiency and my decent duration to help with my sleep arrows, as well as my drain on prowl. I also have positive power strength to keep the steel chance up at 100%, so it helps me even more with my energy economy, on top of Arcane Energize that's unranked here. I also have range mods, and I also have Prime Flow, right, to help me with prowl, to make it so I can stay in it longer and not use as many energy pizzas, as well as endurance drift. Now, the reason why I have this, same thing goes for Arcane Consequence, is the parkour velocity stat actually increases how far your rolls go. And on top of that, this also increases my max energy, so why not have this here? So I can traverse a little faster with Ivara when I'm rolling. And Arcane Consequence makes it so that you have increased parkour velocity on a headshot, but you're not going to be getting a headshot. So how's that going to work? Well, your cat can proc headshots. So your cat can proc this for you while he's scratching away, doing fucking nothing. But that's just basically a free speed boost for you. There's another one that called Arcane Agility that makes it so that on damage you get extra parkour velocity, but you're not planning on taking any damage. And if you do take damage, you're going to die instantly because you're going to have no health or shield mods to deal with any of them at all. Onto the Archititron, this is the build I'm using. If you don't have Prime Smite Grenier, I'd recommend you swap this out for Prime Fury and swap Quickening out for Spoiled Strike, as Spoiled Strike is better than just having a regular Smite Grenier, but of course it hurts your attack speed, so that's why I have that there. But this is the build I recommend. It's a raw damage build, and the reason why I'm running a raw damage build for my finisher build is that finishers scale off of your total weapon damage. They can also crit, but unless your weapon can hit 100% crit chance, it's not even worth really going for, honestly. So that's why I'm just going for a raw damage build. It's going to be pretty consistent overall. I also have a build that doesn't require you to have a catalyst, and I have another build that doesn't require any Forma or Prime mods here. But I'd actually recommend you just stick with this build because the enemies, since we're going from cruise ship to cruise ship, the enemies actually scale up all the way to the max level, that is 90 on this mission. I also have the Narmon Focus School here for the Affinity Spike, which gives me more affinity on melee attacks. And pair that with your Affinity Booster and Smita, you're all set to go. Now for Smita, as far as Smita goes, these three mods are literally all you really need. And then anything else is extra, really. You don't even really need Fetch here because you're really not going to be picking up any resources. You're only getting the XP, so you don't need vacuum in any shape or form. But anything else you choose to add, that's up to you entirely. But you could probably do this without even a catalyst, looks like. So just a fresh Shemitah is good to go for with this build. Anyway guys, that's all for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. And catch you guys next time. Peace.